going on, Glenn?
We're making mozzarella cheese. So the milk this time around, it was skimmed a couple days ago. It was pasteurized, so we're starting with pasteurized milk because you don't heat the mozza up to pasteurization temperature. If you want it pasteurized, you got to start off with pasteurized milk. So that's what we're doing. It's almost 10 o'clock and we're starting to make mozza. All right, so to make mozzarella, if you want it to be stretchy, you gotta use citric acid. If you don't use citric acid, it won't be stretchy, and you gotta use rennet. And this is rennet, this is citric acid. And yeah, we've tried the internet stuff making mozza without using rennet or without using citric acid, and it's been a complete failure every time. But the half dozen times that we've done it using the citric acid and the rennet, it's turned out pretty good. We had one really bad wreck with wheat curds. So in order to firm the curds up a little bit, because we're using pasteurized milk, we're going to try adding a little bit of calcium chloride, and that happens to be in pickle fresh. So it's the first time we've done the calcium chloride. There'll be about a half a teaspoon dissolved in some water going in that whole pot, somewhere between a quarter and a half teaspoon. And we'll see if that if you use too much, your curds won't be stretchy, but if the curds fall apart, it was bad. Yeah, it was just a big bunch of mush, and yeah. So we're gonna try the citric acid and see if, or the pickle fresh with the calcium chloride, and see if that firms things up. So you get citric acid at a cheese making place or online. Or you can get it, the first time we got it at a wine supply place that supplies winemaking supplies. They usually carry it there too. It's a necessity. So there's 3 teaspoons of citric acid dissolved in about a half a cup of water here. Just gently stir it in. It just changes the pH of the milk. I guess you could use lemon juice or vinegar if you could figure that out, but I've never been able to make it work. So I'm going to use the low rate that they recommend because I haven't done this before with the calcium chloride. I'm going to put a quarter of a teaspoon in. That's an eighth of a teaspoon per gallon of milk. And I'm dissolving this in a quarter of a cup of water. And then that'll go into the cheese. So we're adding the calcium chloride solution to the milk. And the temperature right now of the milk is 66 degrees, which is maybe a little warmer than they like to have. So I got to heat it up to 90 degrees Fahrenheit before adding the rennet. So I'm setting my beeper for 90 degrees. I need a half a tablet of rennet. Apparently, rennet doesn't like chlorinated water. So if you're in town on town water, you're going to have to dissolve your stuff in something that isn't chlorinated. Because this is a very finicky enzyme, and if it doesn't work, your cheese will be a flop. But out here on the farm with the farm water, it's not an issue. Just use our regular water. So it needs to dissolve in the water a little bit for at least 10 minutes while our milk is heating up, so it has a chance to activate. So just a little, I don't know, a quarter or a half a cup of water in here. And we'll put the rennet tablet in the water. And it'll kind of fall apart and be all milky in there, but that's what it's supposed to do. So we're at 90 degrees. You see there's a little bit of curdling happening already. That's the first time that's happened for me, but that's probably got something to do with the pickle crisp. So what we're going to do is we're going to get ready to stir in the rennet. It should be dissolved in the water now, more or less. So that's what it looks like in the water. So when we stir in the rennet, we don't want to stir for more than a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, because it's trying to firm up the milk, and the stirring is breaking it up. So we want to make sure that it's well mixed in, but not to overstir. So I'll just do that. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And it wants to kind of float to the top, so we want to make sure we're doing a top-down motion to mix the rennet in. We just leave it alone for 15 minutes. It's been about 12.5 minutes. You can see the milk is starting to separate a little bit there. I'm just going to check for a clean break here. Just stick the knife in, pull it. You can see how it's kind of like pudding there. That means we're off to the races here. So stop the timer. Now we're going to cut the curd into 2-inch cubes. It's quite milky without the calcium chloride. Certainly seems to be a firmer curd, which is what we were after. Hopefully not too firm. So now we'll cut the other way. And we'll do it at an angle too, otherwise we just got a bunch of big long rectangles in here. So now we let it rest for 3 minutes and then we start to cook it again. So we're going to cook it very slowly over about 10 minutes. We're going to bring it up to 105 degrees Fahrenheit and stir it just super duper gently because we don't want the curds to break. They're quite a bit firmer than the last time I did this. So the calcium chloride, the difference here, the curds look quite firm. The whey is a lot more clear. It was quite milky, and yeah, it seemed to do its job. We'll see how things stretch here. So because the curds are so thick, the heat's going to want to stay at the bottom. So we want to just very carefully move things around. We don't want to crush the curds. We just want to stir very super gently. So as it heats up, the curds are supposed to get firmer, so they're still pretty fragile. Just take our time. As we cook it here, the whey is starting to work its way out of the curds. So the curds are sinking to the bottom and it's getting to be more and more whey. We don't want to squeeze the whey out, we just want to let it come out on its own. Stir it around a little bit. So we're at 105, it's been about 5 minutes. You can see the curds, they're really nice and firm. I got to tell you, the difference between this using the pickle crisp and not is just night and day. These are really nice firm curds. Let's hope that it's still stretchy when we're done. we tried to make some ricotta out of the way on the last one, and you can quite often do that with rennet made cheeses by heating up the whey and adding vinegar, but it was a whole bunch of work and not a whole lot of rennet out of the mozzarella. It wasn't worth it. And this whey is pretty light colored. I don't think there's a lot of milk solids left in there. So we're just gonna clean off most of the whey here so we can dump it. We got most of the whey out. We've just got some of the mozzarella in the bottom there. So I'm gonna pour the rest of it through the cheesecloth. Now that we've got it down to a manageable size. Almost manageable size. That's a pretty hefty chunk of mozzarella cheese there. Look at that. Holy dynamo. So it's going to shrink up a little bit before we're done because it's still got quite a bit of whey in it. And the last time I did this, the curds were so soft they'd almost go through the colander if you weren't careful at this point. But I just about don't even need cheesecloth here. So we're just gently squeezing it a little bit, letting it drip off. Nice and dry. So now we got to heat it up and stretch it a little bit. There's a couple ways to do that. Today we're just going to do the microwave method because it's simple and quick. So it's about like 105 degrees, so it feels like a warm bath. It's not that hot. When we heat it up to stretch it, it's going to be so hot we just about can't touch it with our hands. So we're just getting as much of the whey out of it as we can before we start. Okay, so we still draining off a little bit of the whey here. And we're going to sprinkle in a teaspoon cheese salt. This is just non-iodized salt. We're not going to work it too much while it's this temperature. We're going to throw it in the microwave for a minute here. That's a minute in the microwave. You can see a lot of the whey started to come off. It's feeling pretty warm, so we're going to drain off a little bit more of the whey. The outside's certainly warm, so we don't really want to break the outside. We just sort of want to knead it, kind of like bread. We're just going to fold it over a little bit, and if we see that it's kind of breaking, it's not hot enough yet. So we just want to fold it over, drain off a bit more whey. And if I can touch it and hold my hand on it, it's still not hot enough. So we'll give it another 30 seconds. So we're getting there. It's still not all the way hot enough. So we'll just kind of fold it over again, spread that heat around. We don't want to tear it, we just want it to kind of squish. That's hot. Holy hot. Oof, hot, hot, hot. Yeah, it's feeling like it. Getting pretty close to where we want to be. I like to cut it into about serving sizes. And we're going to knead it a few times. Oof, it's just about so hot I can't hardly touch it. So what we want to do is knead it until we get a nice shiny mozzarella sort of ball thing going on there. If you over knead it, it kind of starts to lose its flavor, but you see that nice shiny ball there? That's probably close enough. That one's good. You stick it in some cold water. Make the balls bigger or smaller, but I like to do it in about a serving size here for a meal or two. And if it starts to tear, just stick it back in the microwave again. Got that good. Nice and shiny. It's squeaky. I'll just keep a little bit of this here and we'll heat it up when we're done so we can see how stringy it is. Can't hardly touch that. Hot, hot, hot. There, I'm just going to warm it up in the microwave and we'll see how stretchy it is. That's mozzarella.